In 2 minutes time, class starts.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes. Many congratulations.
Thank you. Mute on. Can they hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, I don't know something too shitty or something just to we must say he is too super active. But only no.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry, she.
The way you're pressing, Italian student link now. Down student link. The link down student link.
Delay.
This is what
This is not playing. This is only something.
student.
Okay, you're not willing to watch. Is it C3? Yes. ESG. This is J. Yes. Okay. For this last one. Good afternoon. Hello, CSE 333 students. Good afternoon.
Yes, I think I hear. They're hearing you.
Yeah, welcome to the section 3 of the course this semester. I will be taking office automation aspect. If you can hear me, just type yes in the chat. Hold on. Okay. This is the third segment of the course, CSE 333. And what we'll be handling today is office automation. For the purposes of this class, I have the following highlight, saying that at the end of this segment, the student should be able to capture what we mean by office, also to have the big overview of office automation and the office automation trend. I will also mention office automation components and some examples, as well as the technologies that are involved in office automation and the tools that are used. During the class, I will also mention some access control techniques and filing system, and what will be the future office professionals and skills, what will they look like, as well as some emerging trends and near future trends. And I'm going to end the class by a brief introduction to standard packages, the example of SPSS. So what is an office? Naturally, office is supposed to be a given space, but you see along the course of this class that is not necessarily going to be a fixed place as it's obtained today. But from the beginning, office used to be a place which is used for the purposes of control of information, efficient operations, where professionals meet, professionals like physicians, lawyers, engineers, to conduct their businesses. And in such a space, you will have a situation where you have few tables, chairs, typewriters, and some basic office equipment. And the place can be concerned permanently with the records of organization. That is, you want to keep your files, you want to keep your information for future use. So in essence, what we're saying is, office is an information center. It's also an opportunity for the company or the organization to prove its existence. And it serves as a channel of communication between some people and even the departments for the real business of the organization. In the office, you have the coordination of your work, and even plans and policies are communicated through office, including managerial control. There are some services that are being provided by some organizations, and these are rendered via the physical location of the office. Part of these services could be typing service, oral communication service, accounting service, and so on and so forth. So if we have office to be able to capture all those within that space, it means that we can have different varieties. We can have varieties of offices, like what people refer to as reception, which is the front office, the middle office, which is more or less supervised by the back office, the electronic office, where you have the integration of computer system and other technologies, and of course the virtual office. Well, the virtual office is actually the landing point of this segment of the course. What I mean is that is the actual point that the migration is moving into, that you don't have to view office as a fixed office space. It could be you could be on a remote work assignment. You could be within any space in your area. Once you have a portable communication tool, such as electronic mail, cellular network, laptop, and so on, and of course, a video conferencing application, you can actually engage in all those services and functions that we say office is there to serve. So these are the types of offices that used to be even before the virtual office that we see now. Talking about office automation, at the beginning, people talk about office, modern day office, traditional office, conventional office, and so on and so forth, all connoting a physical space. But at the advent of office automation, we know that it could be anywhere, any place, once you have the application of technology. But the office as it is, the basic source is the information. By now, you know what information is. When you have your data and you are able to derive and inform data from it, that informed data is called information. This is the basis of automation system. Office automation without information can go nowhere. So, and we have some enabling technology that actually migrated the traditional office to the office automation we're talking about. And all these revolve around telecommunication technology and computer system. These serve to support all the office routines, thereby increasing the productivity. And of course, you have the variety of technologies like I mentioned earlier. It's also of note that the cost of this technology are becoming bearable. So many companies are tuning into the electronic or the office automation. So what is office automation? Office automation refers to the use of electronic devices, computer software, and internet-based systems that support administrative procedures and perform routines, basic office routines in an office environment with the aim of reducing time and the effort expended by the workers. So in essence, we are talking about technology, we are talking about automation, we're talking about some performance mechanisms that are incorporated via the technology, thereby increasing the accuracy, and also you are able to deliver to time. So in essence, we are saying that office automation as a concept more or less is driving us to a new profession, more or less is driving us to a new integration of technologies, and of course, a new perception, even with the tools that are readily available to man. So many office tasks are now performed using these technologies, unlike the traditional office. So if you look at the components that you have now on the screen, we have electronic publishing, we have image processing and document storage, office management, electronic communication and collaboration tools. These are the components of office automation. Hello, someone. Permit me to give you the first code of attendance. Hello, 3MLJK. That is code 1 for the attendance. 3MLJK. Thank you. Hello, are we together? I want to see 1 or 2 charts. I can see concurrent viewers, but actually, are we on the same page? Dear students, can you just type, we're here? Somebody is asking me which lecture is this? Oh my goodness. Okay, you are here. Okay, I can see some yes. Thank you very much. Thank you. Then I believe you got the code. Okay. Just say I have the code. Just type I have the code. The code is 3MLJK. Okay, great. So I can continue. I want to move on to the trends now. Trends in office automation concept. See, we are saying we are making use of the technology to carry out the normal office task. We are making use of computer, we are making use of telecommunication, and we are more or less going through what a normal office should go through, and it is being achieved. However, the business procedures are now different from the traditional office. Of course, you are still going to achieve the same thing, but at a better pace, more fascinating, and also you are able to get many jobs done without stress. This new technology also brings about new management techniques. More or less, is changing the old work habits. And once the old work habit changes, it means that so many other things will change. For instance, your job is being redesigned. Therefore, the trend is workers have to conform by getting new skills to add to what used to be. Unlike in those days, equipment, typewriters, bulk telephones, nobody's talking about all these type of things to produce your documentation, your communication, and your filing system. So what we're saying in essence is the trend of using a computer-based technology is actually demanding for new skills, is actually demanding for new attitude. And also we are going to have new professionals that will now be digitally compliant. Even the intellectual concept among office staffs will change and are actually changing. For us to actually achieve this office automation we're talking about, there are some factors that marks the success of this switch. The switch is not easily come by, so to say, if the technology is not there. So the very first concept we want to talk about is the design of more user-friendly human-computer interfaces. That is, even if you want to work with the computer system, you are not limited to the keyboard again. You are not limited to the keyboard again. You have so many inputs, varieties of input devices that you can use that will make it easier for you to work in the 21st century office. Also, many devices that you'll be making use of in the office now, in the concept of office automation, now have computers and embedded technology. This implies that some certain task will be done for you almost automatically without stress. Also, another factor is the communication technology, which actually integrates devices and people. Everybody is tied to one gadget or the other now. And this is the trend that is, these are the technology that is actually making this trend possible. Also, cloud technology. I put here cloud is as a service thing, for both hardware and software resources. You may not own a storage. You can just buy this part of it as you need. That is what we mean by as a service concept. Take, for instance, you want to travel from Ile-Ife here to Lagos. You don't need to own a building in Lagos before you can have a space to stay. You can actually knock at the door of a hotel, pay for 1 day or 1 hour or 2 hours. You are buying that space now is a service. You are purchasing that service. So also in cloud technology, you can actually get this hardware and software provided for you as a service. Also, transformation of clerical work and flexible office automation. Okay, thank you so much. I can see some students are telling me that they have the code. Fine. So more or less, the world is undergoing a very rapid change due to the innovations in office automation. And these are the key success stories that are driving that trend. So in essence, where we are now is to ask that important question. If we have the office that has been transformed into this, what should be the choice of our hardware? What should be the choice of our software? What should be the choice of our input and output devices? What kind of processing and storage devices is going to be required to carry out our day-to-day office routines? And of course, another trend in the office automation concept is that information is now multifunctional. The sense that the decisions and the decision support tools could be obtained as online access to database. You could get your facts via model building and forecasting. You could also have to your table risk analysis being done. You could also have access to sophisticated graphics. And of course, you could integrate data and text. And you have these office automation that even go beyond working on Microsoft Word or trying to do some documentations with your database management system. You have a lot to achieve in this electronic package. These are the trends that is being seen in a space where the office, the traditional office, is being transformed by office automation technologies. So a typical office automation will comprise of hardware, to comprise of software, to comprise of telecommunication tools, and also data storage facilities, including databases. What we're saying in essence is office automation is a process that involves people, procedure, and technology. Procedures such as how do we now process our documents? The days of using Tapex is off. The days of tearing papers because we want to edit is off. The days of accumulating papers are gone. The days of having to move from one point to the other before you can talk to another person in an office space are gone. And of course, you can store huge amount of data via the storage devices that are provided within the office automation space. And that is why we say office automation is a process that actually involves people, procedures, as well as the technologies that are bound to actually convert the traditional office to the 21st century office. If this is the case, so what actually are we achieving? We're achieving a documentation that is so easy that creating, editing, and organizing and even storing are no longer as tasky and energy sapping as it used to be because of the computer-based tools. Also, communication could be internal or external. Life is good with computer-based tools, as well as presentation and even desktop publishing and project management. With all this, we say the office is getting a high quality assurance for work delivery. So what are the tools that are used in office automation? These are the following. We can discuss the following examples. What is happening? We are here, I have the code. Oh, that's good. Good to know. Thank you. So presently, I'm talking about the office automation tools examples. For instance, document management. For document management, You can make use of Google Workspace. You see, if you have about 5 or 6 or 7 people working on a particular document, you don't need to start labeling them with each person's name to know what each and every team member have done on the document. All the editing will be seen in real time by all the group members. So also the Dropbox, your file storage, you can share, can have a share across devices. For the analytics, when you want to process the raw data that you have and you want to report what you're able to get from that data that is being provided for you. The data may be enormous, so big, up to the realm of what we call big data. So Zoho Analytics will do that for you. You can do your charting, you can do your performance tracking, and you can also make use of Power BI to do that. Other examples on communication tool like the Microsoft Team, and Microsoft Team allows you to share. You can do file sharing, you can do remote operation on a Teams space. You can do video calls, you can do messaging, and so on. And of course, talking about project and the task management tools, you can make use of MS Project or Trello to actually accomplish that. So we have so many examples of tools that you can use for the day-to-day running of the office within the concept of office automation. So what we say, or what we can derive at the end of the day, is that with office automation, you have a greater efficiency and better service. You produce your work with accuracy, you are timely, it relieves you of monotony, and in most cases, you have a better information retrieval. You don't have to search through file cabinets or from letter A1, A2, A3 to AZ before you get to where you're going. All these are made easier with office automation. So therefore, these are the advantages, but of course, there is no technology that will not have its own downside. For instance, when you get into the office, it's the same thing you do all the time. And you know, human being, you know how we are made. At times you get bored, especially let's say you work at a data entry office. The only thing you do every time is that you are just sitting by the keyboard, typing this, typing that. Almost every day, you get bored because of the monotony. So this is a downside of the office automation. Also, poor selection of equipment relative to employee skill levels. This is another obstacle in office automation. It will interest you that if the company decides to invest a huge amount of money on a particular equipment, and let's say a company has about 100 staff, and out of these 1, 2, 300, only 2 people can actually manage the equipment that is being bought. What do you think will happen? The other 98, they will revert back to their normal, traditional, hard way of doing things that is not going to be beneficial to the company. Mind you, the company has already purchased this equipment and nobody is using it because their skill level is yet to be upgraded to make use of the equipment. This is another downside of office automation. If there's poor selection of equipment that could not match the skill level of the employee. Well, so far so good. When you talk about automation, people are usually scared. At times, it could be genuine. At times, it may not be so genuine. For instance, some people will believe that office automation is going to displace them, which is true to a certain extent. But there's a way to that anyway. When people get retrained, when they upgrade their skills, this will no longer be a problem. But sincerely speaking, if the office staff stay where they are, they will just be left there. So more or less, office automation is going to displace them. And of course, there are some administrators that will suffer loss of status. You know, in those traditional offices, what you do is you carry your, once you want to carry one file, especially in this part of the world, you have to say, "Oga sir, please, I need the permission to look into this file. I need this permission to see this and that." Now, all these files are on your table, so you don't need to call anybody to ask for permission to look into anything. So some administrators will suffer loss of status, that prestige, you know. And of course, they may be so anxious to the extent that once these systems have been installed, it's another thorn in their flesh. So these are the downside of office automation. Like I said, there is no technology that will not have its downside. And of course, when you have a tool, it depends on what you are able to do with the tool. So for the technology in office automation, I mentioned the key players when I was introducing this segment. What we have now that I want to talk about is computer networks. This is one of the facilitating technology, a cogent one, an important one at that. For office automation, I'm talking about networks. It's on everybody's lips. You talk about road networks, you talk about bus networks, you talk about mobile networks, and so on. When we say networks, what we're saying is there are groups, maybe of devices of people, that are connected together. And once there's connection, it means that some things will go on. What will go on? You'll be able to share data, you'll be able to share resources. And once you are connected, it means that your access may no longer be local to the physical space that you are. That means you can even operate at other locations. So we can say that computer network can be defined as a system of two or more interconnected devices that communicate to share resources and data based on defined protocols over communication media that could be physical cables or wireless via the internet, the email, and the cloud services. Once you're able to have this kind of scenario in an office, you see that you can reach every part of the universe while you are sitting down in your office. So this is one of the important concepts that you should be familiar with as one of the key players in office automation. So when you have a computer network, you're able to share resources. This is an advantage. You're able to share data. You're able to do video conferencing, teleconferencing, and so on. So far that this is a good story to say about computer network. The downside of it is there is a cyber criminal that is waiting for you at the other end to is busy writing malicious programs that is going to deny you access to most of the resources that you cherish. And in talking about computer networks, it depends on the geographical span or the reach of your network. I mean, your resource space. It could be a local area network LAN if it's within a room. It could be a metropolitan MAN if it is within a municipality. It could be a WAN, such as across a state or a country. It could be a personal area network where one computer is around being connected within a single house. Or it could even be a body area network where you have your wireless headphone, your wearables on your body. These are the types based on geographical span or reach of your network. If we now say computer network is the way to go and is a key facilitator in office automation, how do you select your network device? You must take care of what is the geographical space that you want to cover. Are you going to have a connection within a room or within a building or among buildings? Or you want to have which type of computer? Is it a desktop? Is it a laptop? What kind of topology of network you want to use? And also, what kind of work do you actually want to achieve? And is your connection going to be a local connection or you want to go on the internet? All these questions need to be answered before you can select your network devices so that you won't run into a problem. Talking about telecommunication or communication, which is another key player in office automation. When you have a telecommunication or communication going on, that means you have a particular data or information that you want to work with, that is the message. This thing is originating from one machine or space that can be referred to as a source, and is going to a destination that we can refer to as the receiver. And of course, if there's a sender and a receiver, there should be a path between them. If a path is not established between them, that means what the sender or the source is sending is not going to reach the receiver, who is the destination. What I'm saying in essence is, if probably you are in a computer building and you need to go to town, there's something that will connect you between, that will be a connection between the computer building and Road 1 gate. If you cannot get that media, then whatever you have in your hand or in your bag cannot reach the person you want to give it to at the campus gate. In computer parlance, we say that that transmission media, that path, could be across via electric signals, or it could be across air via electromagnetic waves. So in essence, we are having, in a complete communication system, we are having the message, which is the data you are interested to send across. You have somebody who is the originator of the information. You have another person who is going to be the destination, and you are performing this communication over a transmission media, which could be wired or wireless in form of electromagnetic waves. And of course, we have the protocol. The protocol is very, very important because that is the rule. That is the rule of the transmission. That is the rule of the communication. For instance, you could look at the diagram that I have on the screen. I have a sender and I have a receiver, but there's just a single pathway, one directional motion between the sender and the receiver, which means this kind of scenario is not going to wait for acknowledgement. And there's a way to establish this kind of network, which means when you are writing the protocol, you don't need to make provision for acknowledgement. For instance, in this scenario that we are, you are in your various locations. I'm talking to you. That is one way. But the moment I say, can you hear me? Can you put something on the chat box so that I can see what your response is? It means that it is more than what I have on the screen. That means there's a path between the sender, from the sender to the receiver, and there's also a path from the receiver to the sender. So in essence, it depends on the protocol. If the protocol says that, if the protocol or the application that is between the lecturer and the student in this scenario is such that you can only send chats, that is the rule of the communication. If the rule is such that the application also permits you to use voice, then it would have been written as part of the communication procedure that the protocol should be such that we have a bi-directional communication. So all these, what we term as protocol, are just set of rules that are employed during communication between the sender and the receiver. It could be one way, it could be bi-directional, that is sender to the receiver, receiver back to the sender. When you have receiver back to the sender, that protocol actually makes use of acknowledgement. And even the acknowledgement should be such that, okay, what is expected to be said? Is it that the student will just say, I heard you, that's all? Or the student is going to write some 4 or 5 lines and send? So it depends on the application that is actually being used between the sender and the receiver based on the protocol that is being used. For instance, I have some examples here. We have the HTTP, the full meaning is Hypertext Transfer Protocol. We have the FTP, File Transfer Protocol. We have the TCP/IP, which is the Transmission Control Protocol, and the IP. So these are the examples of protocol that form the complete elements of a communication or telecommunication, where we have the message, we have the sender, we have the receiver, we have the transmission media, as well as the protocol. Another important success story of the technology that actually predisposes office automation to what almost everybody is embracing is another technology called cloud computing or on-demand computing. I am within an office here. The cloud is far away in the sky, you know? So which means in cloud computing, what we're saying is you can actually manipulate or access hardware and software resources remotely without leaving where you are. So it could be that you are working on an infrastructure remotely, or you are even storing data remotely, or you are even making use of application remotely. And that is what brings us to the cloud service model. We have infrastructure as a service. In some textbooks, you see it as hardware as a service. You have platform as a service, and you have software as a service. So for the infrastructure as a service, it means that your computer, you can actually have a remote access to the computer or other infrastructure in the cloud. For the software as an access, you can have access to, I already installed software somewhere. You don't need to buy all these things just because you want to use. You know, I gave you an instance earlier on. I said, because you are going to spend 2 days in Lagos, does not mean that you have to build a house in Lagos. You can just buy that service. That is what we're talking about here. So please note that you can have a model of infrastructure as a service. You have a model of platform as a service. For platform, you could get some platform that will give you the opportunity to deploy some tools. Of course, if you get it means that you have to be tied to a single provider. And of course, you can also have a software as a service paradigm within the cloud computing to virtualize the software that you are not actually going to buy based on probably you just need it for some time duration. So for cloud computing, you could have it as a public cloud. You could have it as a private cloud. You could also have it as an hybrid. So what's the core thing is that we are trying to establish a communication such that we're able to make use of the facilities that are not on our table or in our premises. That's the essence of the cloud computing. Okay. Okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Somebody even typed it on the. So I mentioned the facilities that you could have access to that you don't really need to buy. You could even have cloud storage, like storage devices, getting the block storage or the file storage, depending on your need for making use of the cloud facility. Another important technology that promotes and predisposes office automation to as we have it today is the IoT, Internet of Things. You see, at times people try to make fun of themselves. Let's say you are looking for your key. Your friend will say, flash it now instead of searching for it. And you know you cannot flash it. Why is it that you cannot flash it? Because it's not an IoT device. Because you cannot have a remote connection to it. You cannot talk to it while it's not at your present place. If your phone is somewhere within the building, you could get somebody else to call your phone, so that you can have access to it. This is what we mean by IoT. We have a physical item or people or that are referred to as things. And these are equipped with software, electronics, networks, and sensors that will gather data and also share the data. So in essence, we are looking for connectivity beyond typical devices, even to some other items within the office space. Like let's say, for instance, you are so tired at your office desk, you needed a cup of coffee. You can just, if your coffee dispenser is an IoT device, you can speak to it and say, get me a cup of coffee. So more or less, it gives the opportunity to work in a smart environment because data is being gathered, is being shared, and the devices, you can talk to them at any time. These are one of those key factors that predisposes office automation to the table and at the doorstep of everybody in the current world. So what are the tools? We have talked about the technologies. What are the tools in office automation? One of the tools is a word processor. For a word processor, as you see from what is being depicted on my screen, you can create, you can edit without losing a single sheet. You can save, having a soft copy. You can print, having a hard copy. These are what you can do with document creation using word processing as an office automation tool. Also, we have desktop publishing. Examples, we have Microsoft Publisher that you to design and produce high quality documents like flyers, like magazines, for easy distribution. And you have quality graphics. You can make use of CorelDRAW. You can even make use of web-based tools like Canva to do all this. And what are the features of the desktop publishing? Can do the page layout for you, can do image manipulation. And these are for the uses of the publishing industry, the advertising agencies, education institutions, printing presses, and so on. For data storage tools, we have some that are used for primary storage, known as RAM, ROM, cache. We have some that are for secondary storage, like the hard disk, and the other ones like the CD, the DVD, and so on. And of course, you have cloud storage, like I mentioned earlier on, and also the offline storage, like your pen drive, that you can use to actually store this information. Part of it is the optical disk storage. Although, like any other tool, in this case, CD is becoming obsolete. You don't see people carrying CD about again, because they have a better storage devices to use. Computer accessories like scanners, fax machines, printers. Scanners, you can take your hard copy document, it's going to convert it into an output, and you get the soft copy of your document, which you may decide to print at a later time, or you keep it as a soft copy. You currently have a fax machine that can allow you to scan a printed document and transfer it over telephone lines to another fax machine, and it will be printed at the destination. Okay, so that's a fax machine for you. And of course, you have printers, which is an output device, gets you the hard copy of your documents. It can be used as a standalone, and it can also be used as a network printer. Okay. Apart from fax machine, there are scanners. There are scanners that just for digitizing. I mean, you want a digital copy of a physical document, scanner will do that for you. And some disk store documents, like your PDF, your databases, your Microsoft Word, and so on, you can allows you to store your work electronically inside these storages that we have mentioned, but they are in a particular format that you want or that is required from the type of work that you're doing. Apart from that, we even have the groupware, which are collaborative software that you can use for automation in your offices. This groupware, they allow collaboration among users. You can work together for document sharing, to share calendar, to share messages, in video conferencing. And you have example like Microsoft Teams, you have Zoom is popular, WebEx is another one that you can make use of. Before I go into the use cases of office automation system, please, dear students, are you listening? I want to give you another attendance code. ESJT3. ESJT3. If you get that, just type on the chat, roger that or copy that. ESJT3. EST3. ESJT3. That's the attendance, that's the second attendance code. Somebody is asking for the third one. It looks as if you are working ahead of everybody in the country, not even this class alone. I've given the attendance code 1 and 2. Okay, I can see some positive responses from students that have gotten that. Yeah. Yes, that's great. Okay. Yeah, so for the guy asking for the third code, please be patient. Be patient. I'll give you that. Just be patient. Yeah. So I want to move into the use cases of office automation system. There are quite a number of them. For instance, in the banking sector, you can have online or mobile banking. You could have ATM services. Unlike in those days, you people may not know the difference with the banking that we have now and what it used to be. Because most of you guys, you are digital natives. People in my age bracket are not digital natives. We get to transform from analog to digital. Okay, so we really appreciate this tremendous trend that we're having. For instance, in the yesteryears, if you have a bank account at a place in Lagos, for you to get money, you must go to that location, that branch, before you can get money. You see, it happens sometimes. It was during Ife Modakeke War. I needed money. My bank account is cooperative. I don't know. You may not know what bank is called cooperative again. It is what is called Polaris now. I needed money from cooperative bank. I have to come to cooperative bank in Ile-Ife on campus from Oyo State before I can have access to that money. Unfortunately, that day was one of the days those warriors had the day. So it was so terrible. But now, you can have your accounts in northern Nigeria. You can have your accounts in the North Pole of the world, and you have access to that account here in Nigeria. You may not really be able to appreciate it because you guys are digital natives, but we analog that transform into the digital, we know what it means to us. So for the banking system, you can now have online and mobile banking. You can have ATM services. You don't have to queue in the banking hall. If the system is working fine, there are so many ATMs that you can go to withdraw your cash. And of course, there is electronic funds transfer. And you have facility to manage customer accounts and even detect fraud. So in the office automation with respect to the banking industry, life is so good now with all these up-to-date technologies. In tourism and aviation, one old professor shared his experience sometimes online. He said he wanted to travel to the UK and he had to sleep in the airport in Lagos for 1 week before he could become his turn. And even it was a VIP that actually helped him. Otherwise, he said some people have been sleeping there for 2 weeks before he gets to their turn. But on your table, on your phone, you can make seat reservation. You can even change your plan. You see, so these are the effects of office automation on hotel and airline seat reservation, autopilot, itinerary routing, and so on. So for the airline seat reservation, in real time, you can have your seat. You can have online ticket booking. You can do payment processing. You can even check in your room before you move to the airport. You see? So instead of waiting again to get your boarding pass, it's already prepared for you. And you go your way. So these are the spaces that we have now for the office automation. It is such that it makes life easier, and that is the trend, that is the in thing now. For security, you can see Nigerian police, our friend. They are having nice time with the computer system. They are trying to do some tracking. They are checking crime record databases. They can even track, they can do surveillance. All these to the automation system that we have in the security sector. And you can have CCTV, you can have remote sensing, and so on. So this has redefined the workspace. And you can see if these police, our friend, if they are not computer literate, that means they would have been displaced by now. But these ones here, it looks as if they are computer literate. In the healthcare sector, we can have health informatics that manages the health data. Even the researches in the healthcare, you have the expert system where there is no doctor. You have surgery simulation, which are being used to teach medical students instead of running experiments on one cadaver, and as soon as it's done, that is thrown away. You can have series and several surgery simulations. And of course, we have robot-managed diagnostics now that will go straight into capture some video and audio data from human body and present it to radiologists to read. And the trend now is people are no longer interested in waiting for radiologists to interpret those data again. You see, people are looking into AI routines now that will compare so many that the radiologists have done before, and they want these routines, these AI routines, to be able to interpret what these managed diagnostics have been able to get from human body, so that at the end of the day, nobody is interested in waiting for anything again. Everything is on the move. Everybody is on the move. Then also within the healthcare sector, you can have information retrieval, keyword search, access control, file access. All these are possible even within the healthcare sector. So the applications, like I said earlier, are telemedicine, disease surveillance, medical imaging, electronic health records, and so on. You have to know all this, especially the concepts. Okay, you have to know all these concepts. You should be able to relate with them and it's all out to also let you see clearly why and what are happening in the current space. Okay? By the time we go into the 21st professionals, 21st century professionals, you see what I'm talking about. Access control. You know, we said we're keeping files. We're keeping files. People are having access to the file. The files are no longer on our table. The files are everywhere for everybody to see, to have access, and so on. Do we allow just anybody to have access to our assets? Because in office, in automation, data and information are assets of the company. Just like if you want to sleep in your house, you know you have assets in your room, so you lock your door. Okay? So also data and information are assets to the automated office. So talking about access control, this refers to the security mechanism that regulates who can view or use system resources. Okay? You don't want a situation where just anybody have access to your data and information assets. You have kept them, but of course, there must be an organizational policy that will keep those assets safe. And what is the key word there? What is being mentioned in the computer parlance is CIA. C for confidentiality. That is, your data and information assets must not just be something that just anybody will be able to know what is there. Okay? You have to protect it against unauthorized people. Okay? So that first letter C comes in there, confidentiality. Also, I, integrity. You wouldn't want just anybody to be deleting something or adding something to your data and information assets. So your organizational policy should be all out to prevent improper modifications to your data and information assets that you have kept within your filing system. That is what we mean by the integrity must be protected. That is the I. Then the A now, you have labored much to get this data. You have labored much to get this information. They are now stored as your assets. Now, as these assets are being kept in a way that they are safe, anytime you need it, should anybody debar you from having access to it? That is what we mean by there must be no denial of service. It must be available because you are the owner of your data. So your organizational policy must make it possible for you that you have access to your assets, and you don't want somebody else who is not a legitimate user to make use of your data and information assets. So for access control of the filing system, remember the C, remember the I, and remember the A. Confidentiality, know what it means. Integrity, know what it means. Availability, know what it means. For availability, let me give you a scenario that happened during the last election. During the last election, there was a tool that was supposed to be used. Okay, somebody is asking for the third one. Thank you. Oh, this person is helping me to tell the guy that he should be patient for the third one. I'll bring up the third one. Not now.
Okay.
So I said there was, this thing happened during the last election. The polling units got the votes, the number of votes, the number of votes that were useful, the number that were destroyed. They were able to vet it against the number of ballot papers that were supplied. Now, from each of these polling units, they are supposed to go to a collation center. The collation center have a device that is going to take all the data being brought from the polling unit and log it into this digital device. Lo and behold, you know what happened? Some people had some cyber criminals. They have gone ahead of the time that the polling will end, and they have started sending so many information on that link, to the extent that I doubt if there was any collation center that was able to log on their data. At the end of the day, what happened? People started shouting on the social network that those votes cannot be counted because they were unable to see it on the digital device. There is no government that will put his life on a digital device. There's always, it's a law. The law cannot just focus on one thing and say, yes, everything that cannot pass through this handheld device cannot be taken. No, laws are not written like that. There's a gap, there's a caveat there, that perchance this is not able to be achieved. Go with your papers. And it's only people who want to be mischievous, because the papers that were being used to record have about 20 pages, 20 sheets. So all the stakeholders, they have copies, except a party that has no representative. Unfortunately, some parties have no representatives. Maybe they are just sitting in their party secretariat or something. But if your party has a representative, your representative should have a copy of what happened in the polling booths. So at the end of the day, they have to find a way to do analog versus digital. And that is what we mean by availability. If you have your digital device and some cyber criminals have gone to the extent of not allowing you to use it, that means the test of availability is not there. So you are no longer in control. So in essence, what I'm trying to say is, if you happen to be in an organization, there must be an organizational policy on the C and the I and the A, so that you'll be able to be in control of your data and information assets. And for you to do that, you may use password authentication, you may use series of biometric systems, it could be fingerprint, it could be facial, it could be anything, or role-based access. Maybe it's only the Oga at level 1 that can have access to these files, and if you need to do it, that means you have to maybe be beside him or give you a particular code that you use, and that code will only be live for that time that you want to have access. After that time, you cannot gain access into that system again. So for those asking for the third code of attendance, please listen and listen attentively. This is starting from the last letter in the alphabet, Z, X, N, G, 2. ZXNG2. ZXNG2. Please, if you have it, just copy that For the third code, please. I'm waiting for somebody to say he has the third code. Bro, I'm on the third code, please. The third code. Is anybody here who I need somebody to say third code copy. Okay, yes, thank you very much. So I move on. So somebody has gotten at least the content is different from what we have in the material. One student is saying that the content is different from what he has in the material. Oh, okay. The hard copy lab manual. Okay. The hard copy lab manual is a hard copy lab manual. This is my lecture presentation slide. Okay. This is my lecture presentation slide. What you have in the manual is useful. What I'm giving you as discussion in the class is also useful. So please, yes, I can proceed. I can see some students saying they have seen the third code. So from access control, I want to go into the emerging future office professionals and skills. We've seen what the new office looks like. We've seen the technologies that are used in the new office. We've seen what tools that are there. We've seen how the staff are able to execute with those new tools and techniques. I have some examples here that in the 21st century, the 21st century accounting professional must understand that not all transactions are happening on the paper again. Many are occurring over the internet. Some are even in cloud services. And these have attendant cyber security issues. So what I'm trying to say is 21st century accounting professional must understand what are cybersecurity issues. Also, the 21st century marketing and advertising officer must know that internet advertising is the in thing now. Of course, there are billboards around, but most of the advertisement now goes over the net. So such advertising agents should be familiar with how to live life on the internet. The 21st century production managers, the 21st century administrative service managers, and the 21st century operation analysts will make extensive use of database. So he cannot afford to be an analog person. He has to accomplish his everyday to-day job, and all these tasks, all what he needs are buried in online databases or physical one, in analytical and visualization software. So he cannot play void to visualization software, analytical software, and also simple operations using electronic databases. Talking about outsourcing in the 21st century is different from what it used to be. And now the internet has created many opportunities. You could do outsourcing to domestic farms, you could do offshore outsourcing to low-wage countries. For instance, you can have your computer that the hard disk is manufactured in Thailand. You may have your screen manufactured in China. You may have your mouse manufactured in South Africa, on and on like that. What you have is complete system. All these technologies and devices we're talking about, it's not compulsory that it is one company that will start it from the beginning to the end. Okay? Some companies only focus on motherboards and they have their specification. So what goes into it as attached accessories will conform and they will be purchased from other companies. So outsourcing is the order of the day. Then I said, think about haulage as what we have in soft drink bottling companies. Most of these companies, they only focus on what they have to do in the lab to mix whatever chemicals they want to put in the bottle for you. They are not bothered about how it's going to be transported to your location, the final consumers. They have the haulage companies that will carry from them. They are the owner of the vehicles and they do all these things. So you don't have to do, that company don't have to start the processing from the beginning to the end and say, yes, this is our product. Then also even the school system, that's why the school bus operators. Most schools nowadays, they don't buy school buses. There are agencies that have these buses. They just go to the school, they register, they link them with the parent that want to use the bus, and that is sorted out. So outsourcing is the order of the day in the full automation scenario that we're talking about. You can see I've mentioned I mentioned cloud computing here as emerging and future trends. I mentioned remote work technologies. I mentioned paperless offices, big data analytics, and artificial intelligence. And I said near future uses is near 100% AI. We are yet to reach near 100% AI. Near 100% AI will have its pros and cons. Because by the time we have so many things that we are not used to, there may be commotion in the land. But it's a pointer that people are working towards near 100% AI in the workplace. So I've talked about cloud computing. Most of you know what remote work is all about now. Most of you stay in Nigeria here, you work for companies in America, especially post-COVID, you know. Life will never return to pre-COVID era again. So even up till now, some companies, you could as well apply that I want to do two days remote working, and they will sign for you. Some you say 3 days in the week remote working. So you work from home. Even in Nigeria here, you know, I know some people in Lagos that work 3 days work from home, 2 days in the office. These are possibilities that came as a result of that bad occurrence that we had in COVID-19. So people are working towards near 100% artificial intelligence.